All right, Chuck Fresh from the Under Presence with you, and today we're going to talk about ghost hunting technology. A lot of people talk about ghost hunting technology, but nobody gives you the entire 411. So 411. So the first time ever, I'm going to give you the entire 411. That's both ones together. Everything you need to know about exactly what you need when you go out go on ghost hunting or on a paranormal investigation, as we call it. So no one's done this before, so this is the first time. So this is really exciting for us and for you. We're kind of giving away the trade secrets, which is a little scary, but somebody needs to do it, right? Somebody helped me out when I started ghost hunting and paranormal investigation, so I want to do the same thing to you. I want to give it back. So most ghost hunting technology, both custom-made devices and other stuff accidentally or forcefully repurposed, works around the same principle, generating a lot of energy, hoping to capture some kind of recognizable visual or audible pattern in random noise, really. Paranormal investigations spends a lot of time searching through noise, looking for momentary, meaningful coincidences, really, which is the truth. We've said it before, it's a thankless job. It takes a tremendous amount of time to go through to find anything that's what we consider paranormal and not debunkable. So it's kind of a thankless job, and everyone thinks we're crazy. Sometimes I call it being a defective detective, looking for shadows where nothing really exists is really what we're doing. So in this class, we're going to go over some of the equipment we use in our own paranormal investigations, why we use this equipment, what it finds, and for the first time ever, how to use it. A lot of people gloss over and say, yeah, this is what we use, but they never show you how to use it. So I want to actually dig into that in this video, which is going to be a little long. So hang in there, hang with me. And if you have any questions, as always, put it in the comments and in the classroom or wherever we are here, and happy to answer those for you. Give us a little bit of time. We're busy. We're on crazy schedules over here, but we'll get around to you and answer all your questions. So yeah, hit us with a like, comment, share, subscribe if you have the opportunity. So thanks for watching again, and let's get this show on the road. So let's start off with EMF detectors. A lot of people have a lot of success with EMF. So what is EMF? EMF is electromagnetic. It's called three different things, really. Electromagnetic force, electromagnetic frequency, or electromagnetic field. I'm not going to get into the semantics of which one is correct. If you're an electronics engineer, then you know what's what. But if you're an electronics engineer, you probably shouldn't be here watching this thing. But if you have a preference or a reason for your preference, leave it in the comments because I'm sure somebody's going to want to hear it. So EMF detectors, widely used in paranormal investigations. Why? Because it's believed that ghosts and spiritual energy borrow energy. They're not on our plane, so they don't have the same energy we have. So they have to borrow from us, from people or things, energy already in this dimension, which is why it makes it so difficult for them to materialize in our dimension. They don't use the same energy from what I understand, from what I believe. And again, nobody knows what really happens because we don't have a book or a reference. No one's clued us in on why this happens, what paranormal is, what happens after we die. We don't know. There's a lot of unknown. So everything we're talking about is just a guess at best. But hopefully I like to qualify that as an educated guess. Not in the education systems that we have now, but beyond that, things that even the educated people don't understand yet. And hopefully someday we'll understand that. So the theory is that when paranormal entities pull that energy from somebody or someone or something, it creates a disturbance in the ambient or normal electromagnetic field that we can detect. And supposedly these EMF detectors can pick up that activity. Or some other people believe that ghosts can willingly or inadvertently just simply interfere or disrupt the ambient EM field. And that's a field which is in just about everybody's home, and it's generated by wiring and electrical devices, even Wi-Fi, all kinds of stuff, your microwave, your refrigerator, your television, everything you use that generates an electronic frequency in your house or nearby. So this disruption registers on an EMF meter. It causes a change, a peak, a spike, a dip, or something. Again, it's all a guess at best, but so is life, okay? We don't know why we're here. Faulty wiring, nearby microwave towers, cell towers, sunspot activity, and a bunch of other things can trigger these devices. So it's your job to properly debunk and prove your EMF results are at least potentially or possibly paranormal. And that's what we do. We use these meters for those reasons. So many investigators will ask a ghost or an entity to, hey, light up my EMF meter. I want you to light this thing up. Can you do that for me? To answer like a binary yes or no question. Like peak my meter once for yes or once for no, twice for yes, however you want to do that. Honestly, that hasn't worked so well for us. The ideal motor responsive dowsing rod seems to be much more responsive. Just in our experience, yours may be different. We talked about this in lesson 2. If you haven't watched that, go back and check that out. But along with other tools, an EMF detector can be helpful on an investigation to find the potential source of paranormal activity, whether it's there or not. And it could work for you. The binary questions could work for you. For us, it doesn't work, but for you, maybe it will. Spirits could be different for all we know. We don't really know. So each one of these EMF detectors has different features, and we feel each of these units that we use in our investigations has a feature that makes it stand out, which is why we chose to use them on our investigation. So let's look first at the K2 meter. Once known as the K2 safe range meter, the world famous K2 was originally sold to detect unsafe EMF radiation in a home or a building. The K2 meter became famous after its appearance, like everything else on the show Ghost Hunters. Grant Wilson claims that the K2 has been specifically calibrated for paranormal investigations. Honestly, I'm not sure how accurate that is because no one really knows. No one's completely sure that paranormal activity or paranormal entities all got together and had a meeting and decided to thrive on the 60 hertz band. But it's a cool story, bro. Anyway, if you love that story, go with it, man. It works sometimes, it's small, it's durable, it's easy to use, it has pretty colors, it's made in the USA, and it $60, it's pretty cheap. Every ghost tour has one. Basically, you put a 9-volt battery in it, you turn it on, and you carry it around with you during your investigations. And if it detects something, some kind of flux in the EMF field, it's going to light up the pretty lights and tell you, hey, something's going on. You need to dig a little deeper. Now, the K2 can pick up energy from smartphones, computers, or virtually any kind of electronic device that occasionally gives off electromagnetic waves. So prepare to debunk immediately when you get something on your K2. There are no digital displays with numbers or moving meters, just the 5 pretty LED lights that go up and down. Some folks will call the K2 EMF for dummies. And that's actually a perfect description for that product, and essentially that's what makes it a perfect tool for paranormal investigations. All we really need to know is, yes, there is some kind of disturbance or energy surge in the EMF field here, or no. It's binary, yes or no. Is there something here or not? We really don't care how strong it is. I mean, it's good to know how strong it is because you could end up in trouble if it's too strong, but we're not really overly concerned with the exact readings because they don't really matter. Again, it's yes or no. Is there something here or not? Now, there are several knockoffs that look a little like the K2, and they get all freaked out. Like, yeah, make sure you get a real K2. Do they work any worse or maybe any better? We're honestly not sure, but if you've tested this, let us know in the comments below, because I'm not going to throw $60 away to figure out if a K2, fake K2 is any better than a real K2. Somebody should have done that test already, but I don't know anybody that has. So the Mel Meter, thankfully this thing's still here. This is the Mel Meter, and this has a really good story behind it. A guy named Gary Galka lost his teenage daughter, Melissa, as a result of a horrible car crash. She was a kid. I mean, she's a teenager. A few days after they removed her from life support, thinking she's not going to get any better, Gary Galka said something strange started happening around his house. Like he began to hear ringing of the doorbell and he'd run out there and no one was there. Or the channels on his television would change automatically. Or his lights would turn on and off. Typical electronic interference, silliness, or pranks that spirits are famous for. Galka believed that it was Mel, his daughter Mel, reaching out to him. He says once she came into his room and he felt her actually sit on the edge of his bed. So that experience led that electrical engineer, Gary Galka is an electrical engineer. He said, let me do something about this. Let me see what's going on here. And he created the Mel Meter based on her name, Mel, and the years of her birth and passing, 1987, 2004, 8704, the Mel 8704. It's a digital device for paranormal investigation. So Galka and his family were featured on Ghost Adventures, and the rest is history. The Mel Meter exploded on the paranormal circuit. There's a whole bunch of different models of this thing, of the Mel Meter. The price ranges anywhere from a little bit over 100, 150 bucks to 300 bucks. And all Mel meters detect EMF and ambient temperature changes in the environment. So that's nice. It's a multimeter. It does multiple things at once, which is pretty cool. The upper models feature a telescopic antenna, which actually some of them generate their own independent magnetic field around the instrument, which is really cool. And this EM field can be easily influenced by materials and objects that conduct electricity. So based on source proximity, strength, and field distortion, a bunch of lights on this thing are triggered with the alarm. I can show you. You've got a bunch of lights on here, and you come close to it, this thing goes ballistic, depending on what you've done. I'll turn it off now because it's incredibly annoying, but very, very helpful, okay? In our more active paranormal investigation, something typically interferes with the Mel meter's magnetic field and lets us know that we're not alone. Honestly, the Mel meter is one of our favorite tools just for the EM generator alone. You can use its thermometer to verify the K2's reading if you experience a cold spot. It's got a thermometer on here, and it has a nice red LED backlight so you can see it in the dark. Always helpful because most of these things happen in the dark. Mel was designed to address the EMF range at about 30 hertz, a little different than the 50 or 60 hertz like other devices. So Galka says it happens more around 30 hertz, but it picks up other frequencies as well. The Mel Meter 8704 comes in several configurations, as we said, and they do a heck of a lot of stuff. The manual can be pretty opaque, and there's not a lot of documentation on its usage in plain English, so we're going to do that for you here. So you just remove the single screw. As you can see, we've actually removed the screw permanently. I can't handle screws in dark places on investigations, okay? So take that screw out of there and put a clip on there like you did with the SB11, okay? You install a single 9-volt battery in here and fire it up. So yeah, I hold a little bit of tape holds the door in place, and it's never fallen out on me. We don't really throw it around too much. We kind of put it down and leave it alone. Getting some readings right now. So you hold the power button on the front for a few seconds to turn it on and also to turn it off. So you can hold the range and fast button on this thing to toggle on or off the temperature detection. This allocates all of the CPU to EMF detection, which makes it super, super fast. So right now, the CPU is shared. It's got to detect some temperature, and then it's got to detect EMF readings. So it bounces back and forth and allocates resources to both. But if you turn the temperature off by holding that range fast button, it allocates all the CPU resources to detecting EMF interference. So a lot of people prefer that, but I think personally the temperature is useful, so I leave it on. Temperature actually goes up and down pretty quick, and I see changes in EMF and an acceptable time, which I consider. You can adjust the units on this thing. You can select microtesla or milligauss, basically different ways to measure the same energy. United States uses milligauss, and a lot of Europe uses microtesla, so it's really your decision what you want to use. 1 microtesla is equal to 10 milligauss, so you can use microtesla for a more active display if that's what you prefer. You can toggle these ranges here in the range button. Press that and it'll change everything for you, including the tenths. Galka makes a big deal about this record function to capture minimum and maximum ranges. Is it helpful? Yeah, probably, if you have a big and well-paid team of engineers or interns to record all this information when it happens. We don't. Typically, it's 3 or 4 of us going out, and we're busy doing other things trying to figure out what the devil's going on there. We don't have that team. So, but you can hit the record button. It looks like it freezes up. Just hit the escape button to return to live data while you're recording. And if you want, it'll capture the minimum and maxes. You can also tap the red power button for the flashlight, which is really bright and red, so it supposedly doesn't interfere with infrared recording if you're recording in the dark. Now, the hidden REM button on some of these models, which is underneath the back here, it took me a while to figure this out. You actually lift up the kickstand, and then there's a couple buttons under here. And my first investigation, honestly, I had no idea these were here. I'm like, what the hell are these? Where is this stuff? So this is where it lives. Now, it can activate, this REM button is going to activate the electronic field. Just press it in once, and you'll see this thing do a self-test, and then it'll go nuts. Now, yeah, with 6 colorful LED lights. Now you can, on the side here, it has REM 0 button. So you can zero that out. It says, okay, this field, wherever I am, this is what it is normally. And anything that changes from this point will trigger my sensor. So you can zero that out again. Right now it's freaking out and I don't want that. So the stronger the influence on the REM field, the more intense the LEDs and the sound response. The magnetic field surrounds the antenna, so you want to kind of hold it from the bottom and keep it. There's either something really crazy going on in this room or I'm just going nuts right now. So kind of hold it towards the bottom and keep it away from it to avoid false positives. I got to turn that off. It's driving me nuts. Now, there's an ATDD. ATDD. It's ambient temperature deviation detection. That's what ATDD stands for. So what that does is detects hot and cold spot changes. Now, this has to be used along with the REM feature. Those two circuits are somehow or some reason tied together. So there is an audible alarm for using a 1 octave step for temperature changes, which is a nice feature and really spooky during an investigation. So you have to press both of these. What's interesting is this thing doesn't need to be on, but if the Mel Meter is off, you can't see the on-screen display of what the temperature is. And I'll see if I can change the temperature here by holding this. It's got a thermistor, I think it's called here. And you can hear this go up and down. This will tell me here. Hey, the temperature went up. It's got a little indicator on here. If it goes up, it's red. If it goes down, it's blue. So yeah, a whole bunch of lights and neat stuff on here, which will drive you crazy. And to be honest with you, it's really spooky during a paranormal investigation when these lights go off and you don't expect it and nothing's supposed to be there. So you can zero or tear just like you can with the REM field. Just click temp 0, set it to your ambient temperature. If there's some kind of change, somebody opens the door and the thing goes nuts, just hit temp 0. So this is the temperature I want to be my baseline. So you just press that guy here. So you can zero out the REM and the ambient temperature, and then this thing begins to detect deviations from those norms from that point forward. Do that as many times as you need to do. You can also zero the alarm out or cancel the alarm by pressing these buttons if somebody's trying to talk to you during an investigation. Now, our favorite feature on this guy is actually the I got hold on. You press the hold button. You got to press escape to make it go away. One of my favorite features is the quickness of the temperature sensor on this thing and the REM field. So I like two things about this guy. The things break, again, this REM field all the time when we're on active investigations. And it's typically, ironically, coincidentally, at the same moment when we detect something funky going on with our other devices. Is it a coincidence? Maybe, but unlikely. Spooky? Definitely. And the spookier, the better. You want to be spooked, which is why you do this. Which is why you want to investigate the paranormal, right? It's got a nice backlight. Temperature sensor uses, the temperature sensor, they say it uses a bunch of battery power. I don't know if it uses any more than the rest of the EMF detection. So use a fresh 9-volt every investigation. And then bring a screwdriver and a spare 9-volt battery. You should carry extra batteries to all your investigations because things happen. Sometimes spirits will suck the battery life, the battery energy out of your battery and zero out all your stuff. So these things happen. So another clue too, while I'm thinking about it, is if you do bring extra batteries, leave them in the car because it's in the scene of an active investigation. They can suck the power out of that battery that's in the same room. And now you got 2 dead batteries and that's no fun either. Don't think, yeah, this thing does have a 9-volt, so you can plug it into AC if you have an adapter. So, all right, so let's look at another one of my favorite devices called the Tri-Field Meter. And you've probably seen this on one of the shows too. Yeah, this thing's wacky. It's discontinued. You can't find these things anywhere. It was designed to do field research on natural or organic electric fields, which are known as DC or direct current. Now, its sister, AC or alternating current, was invented over 100 years ago to safely transmit electricity. So AC is man-made, relatively new, and not natural. I mean, it takes a person to generate something, a machine, an alternator to change those AC, those currents. They're flickering on-off on each side of the wire without getting into too much craziness discussion of that. But what's great about this particular tri-field natural EMF meter is designed to ignore AC fields. So spiritual activities seems to be more natural. It doesn't come with a AC DC generator, so it's thought the paranormal energy exists only in the DC state. So only this model, the Tri-Field offers a whole bunch of models, but only this particular discontinued model will detect changes in extremely weak static DC and electric magnetic fields. And it signals with both the tone and the movement of its little needle type gauge. There's no backlight. You can't see it in the dark, so you got to rely on your hearing if you're working in the dark. And it kind of sounds like a Geiger counter. And that's the rub, is in Paranormal Investigator, it's dark, so it's kind of cool that you can hear this thing to clue you in. It'll actually detect energy from your body. Let me turn this up. And this one particularly has a nice sensor on the side, so I'm going to put this on some. Let's turn it up a little bit. There it is. You can hear this thing sounds nasty. It's yelling at me now. So as I put my hand closer to it, it can detect energy from my body. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So human beings and animals emit a faint electric field, which is detectable using the natural Emf meter. We've actually used this. They said you could use it as a motion detector alarm. Just put it in another room and it can detect people or energy from like 10 feet away. And it actually works. Nifty little knob on the side, which changes the sensitivity on it. And you can figure out the ambient normal field in your area and just set it to right about the amount area where it doesn't make noise, and that's your ambient field. And changes will trigger this thing to start making noise and making the needle go crazy. Supposedly this guy is tri-field, so it detects EMS from 3 different directions, sideways and front and back, or up and down at the same time, which is really nice. The other ones are one direction. This is 3 different directions, so that's pretty cool. Again, you can't buy these anymore. We've actually overpaid for one of the last brand new units in existence, and it's been discontinued for several years. And yeah, I'm not ever giving this guy up. It's a collector's item now. So regardless of what anyone tells you, it's newer replacements. They call them the 100XE, which I think is also now discontinued. And the all-digital TF2, although it's very pretty, it does not detect DC fields, only AC. And again, since spiritual activity tends to be DC, newer models are kind of useless in paranormal investigations. So stay away from those and get your hands on one of the tri-field natural EM meters. Definitely pick one of these guys up. Just make sure it works. The only downside, no backlight on this model. Again, you got to use ears only on this guy. Plus, you'll need a Phillips screwdriver, and it's got 4 screws on the back to change the 9-volt battery. Not water resistant, not waterproof. You'll see how kind of open this is when you open the guy up to change the battery. So bring a screwdriver and a fresh 9-volt. Again, leave those extra batteries in the car outside of the building when you're doing those investigations. Learn that the hard way. So the EDI. I love this thing. $200. It's kind of bad, but one of the problems though, you hit this on button, and when it's in a case, it comes on like automatically. To turn it off, you got to hold it for a couple seconds. But to turn it on, if you just kind of, boom, it's on. If it's being jostled around your case or whatever, the other stuff is going to zap your battery out while this thing's on, because LED displays use a lot of battery. They call this EDI Plus. This is the newer version. I think there was an EDI before this, which looks a lot like this. Designed by a couple of brothers from Texas. What's cool about this is it detects EMF, but the multimeter in its name indicates that it does multiple things as well, like the Mel Meter. And in my opinion, it's really one of the best ghost hunting kits built into one device. This thing packs 5 ghost hunting or paranormal investigative tools into one. It has an ultra-low EMF detector down to 10 hertz, they say. 10 hertz, which is, I don't know where the center is, but down to 10 hertz, which is nice. The other ones may do that too, I'm not sure. It detects ambient temperature in both Celsius and Fahrenheit. It's got vibration detection. So when you hit it, or if somebody bumps a table or something bumps something wherever this thing is sitting, you can pick up footsteps or objects moving, indicates you of some sort of paranormal activity. It's got an air pressure sensor. If the air pressure drops in your building, or a humidity sensor as well, in case maybe you're about to get slimed, I'm not sure. And my favorite thing is the big old LED display plus an alarm for signal peaks. Like, I love to be able to look at this thing and actually keep it in camera so I can see if the temperature is changing drastically. I can kind of eyeball that, and my camera can see it too at the same time, so I can kind of log the time at the same time. Now, the thermometer and the EMF, in my opinion, are two keys to this excellent device, and they work simultaneously. Yes, they work. The temperature and the EMF works simultaneously, as they do on the Mel Meter. And you can watch the cool blue lights. Let's see if I can get these guys to light up here. I don't have anything that'll make this do this. Let me see if I can get this guy to maybe light this up for you on your camera too. So really cool to keep this in front of the camera and maybe get a couple of these guys on your investigation too. We have two when we do ours. Vibration detection, it's not super useful because I don't know, we don't have many entities that can generate enough energy to really bump a table, but it is possible. Maybe for poltergeist investigations it could happen. Not sure that changes in pressure, air pressure, or humidity are that interesting when investigating paranormal activity. We've really never seen a spike in that, but it could happen, and maybe this will help you again if you're about to get slimed. It'll detect, hey, there's a whole bunch of humidity in the air. Just like Ghostbusters, maybe you'll get slimed. So I really don't use those sensors, but you can switch the digital readout here for either temperature, humidity, or pressure in any one single instance. I think you can change it for EMF detection too as well. I may be mistaken on that. But again, I think the change in temperature is probably the most interesting thing you'll find on this thing. Now, the newer ones, the EDI Plus comes with an SD slot in the top. And that actually saves the readings as this thing is operating once you hit the record button on the front. And it saves the data so you can import it into their website, which will create this really cool graph for you showing detections from all of the sensors in this thing, which is very, very cool. And you can analyze the data after your investigation. Now, unless you've got a whole staff to look at all this stuff and somehow log and timestamp your investigation to know exactly what happened and when, you know what I mean, coordinate this with your other devices. Personally, I don't find it really useful, the graphing utility, but some people may. If you have an organized staff of electronic engineers, and you got 20 people working with you and somebody's logging everything in a notebook, then, hey, maybe this will provide some really cool information for you. For us, really not that helpful, but I can see how it could be helpful. Again, my favorite features, the blue lights that fire up here if there's any changes in the EMF field, and the giant temperature display. I dig that. The thermometer on this thing can be a little wonky. We've had some investigations where they've shown two entirely different temperatures by a half a degree or more, up to 5. 5 degrees. That's weird. I don't know what's going on, if it's a software crash or what's going on in here, but we've had some questionable readings on the Eddy, and we've reached out to them, didn't hear back by the time we made this video, so it is what it is. But in a dark room, man, it's an awesome tool. I still dig this thing, and we use it on every investigation. So check out the EDI, the Eddy Plus, in one of our investigations.
Are you making that meter go to 66.6?
Perhaps the strangest occurrence that happened this evening was this bit. Two almost identical thermometers placed next to each other, with an almost 5-degree temperature differential. One locked at 66.6, the other at 71 and some change. The team has tried to explain this and done further testing. They could come up with no explanation.
So let's talk about EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, the recording of ambient noise that may contain words or phrases from the other side. Some people believe these sounds might be the voices of spirits trying to communicate with us. Skeptics say EVPs are just noise and it's our minds playing tricks. Basically, we're hearing what we want to hear. we're forcing this noise to create some kind of pattern, something we can understand. So people claim some spirits speak multiple languages, sometimes in the same sentence. Sometimes they speak very quickly, so quickly that you have to slow it down to hear it, or sometimes even backwards. To be honest, deciphering EVPs requires hours of listening and sifting through all this acoustic junk. And then often, like we do, using digital processing to tease these noises into something that we can understand, something that sounds like words. EVP still continues to this day to rank among the most prominent evidence that paranormal investigators can find. And here's why: because humans, we've basically evolved to search for patterns where they might not be evident. Why? In a mechanism to protect ourselves. Sometimes we thought maybe a caveman heard footsteps. He heard something in the background. It could be a tiger's footsteps coming at you. And, hey, I better get to higher ground. I better hide somewhere before I get eaten, right? So paranormal investigators, we kind of find what we consider proof of the paranormal in this noise, because we try to pull meaning out of chaos. And sometimes it's pretty legit. Some of the stuff that we found has been pretty amazing, and I venture to say indisputable. So investigators categorize EVP recordings on their audibility or their clarity. Class A voices are very clear and easily understandable, like this one.
What's my name?
Class B voices are fairly loud and clear and sometimes audible without headphones, like this one. And Class C voices are very soft and often indecipherable. You really got to tease what you're hearing out of Class C voices, something like this.
It sounds like two individual voices. The team was a little freaked out when the beds seemed to sink. As we heard this EVP later, as if someone was trying to tell us something.
Now, regardless of how clear the recording is, the voices rarely speak for more than a few seconds at a time. Sometimes the voices will answer the questions directly, sometimes indirectly. Sometimes they'll be late with an answer. It may call the person by name or mention something very personal to the researcher. Sometimes the voices sound like they're singing or even crying, like this one. There's a number of ways to capture EVPs. There's no one way that's better than others. Regardless of what anybody tells you, we'll review our favorite 3 ways to capture EVPs. Number 1, your smartphone, your video camera on your smartphone. Your phone has a pretty good microphone on it. A lot of paranormal investigators preach, oh, well, you need this high-end digital voice recorder. Buy it from me. I'll make a couple of bucks. But as an audio engineer with years of experience, I can share the truth that all you really need to capture these types of voices are a smartphone or a video camera microphone, and really nothing else. I've tried them all. And to be honest, I've found that digital voice recorders have really no difference in what they capture compared to a Zoom H5 with a professional omnidirectional microphone. I have 20 professional microphones, and I've tried a bunch of them on paranormal investigations. And my best results continue to be smartphones, regular smartphones and video cameras. And even hunting cameras. I got stuff on hunting cameras before, which is really bizarre. Because those are crappy microphones, but they pick up stuff too, depending on where they are. So, and if you can edit, if you have the capability to edit digital audio with an equalizer and adjust the speed or reverse it, then, man, you're all set. See, I just saved you a couple $100 on equipment. No need for the digital voice recorders, believe me. We captured these EVPs on my Samsung Note 10. Check it out. Spirit Box. There's a whole bunch of different models of this one. We like this particular model, SB11. Spirit Box, essentially a modified radio. It's an AM/FM radio. That's really all it is, an AM/FM radio receiver. It scans through AM and FM radio waves, produces a bunch of white noise in the space between the frequencies, and what you'll hear are snippets of words from local radio broadcasts. Some paranormal investigators prefer to put their Spirit Box inside a small bag called a Faraday bag or a Faraday cage, which filters out local radio broadcasts. They propose that any voices heard in that manner are strictly paranormally generated. Tried this a few times, didn't work for us. We got nothing. We got some stuff in the static, but not the killer responses we've got from local radio stations. Maybe it'll work for you. Who knows? It depends really on your investigation, the amount of energy that's in the area, and also the area where you're in and how close you are to the radio broadcast towers. Now, the thing is, paranormal entities might be able to influence these bursts of audio in order to form short words or phrases. We've received some really surprisingly relevant answers to questions and even accurate names buried in the noise in these things. Now, since you and I cannot really control with your AM, FM radio stations can broadcast, technically it's illegal to interfere with those. You can get in trouble with the FCC and fined and even imprisoned. We can't control radio broadcasts. So I believe personally that it is a little closer to random than other voice generating or EVP capturing methods, the Spirit Box. Now, always record your Spirit Box with your smartphone or your video camera. Sometimes you won't hear faint voices or phrases in person. Sometimes you need to listen with your headphones either during or after the session for the best results. It's always better to record it so you can play it again. Did I really hear what I thought I just heard? Because your mind can play tricks on you. Our favorite Spirit Box, this one, the SB11, also designed by Gary Galka of Mel Meter fame sometime around 2014. And bro likes to load up his devices with several sweet functions that make life easier for paranormal investigators, and we dig that. Now check out what the $150 SB11 does. It does single or simultaneous sweep modes in AM, FM, or a combination of both AM and FM. That's interesting. It does adjustable sweep speeds, everywhere from 50 milliseconds all the way to 350 milliseconds in 50 millisecond increments. 350 is only available on channel 2 individual channels here. Forward and reverse sweep. So you can go forward from like 88 megahertz all the way up to 108 megahertz or backwards. Does it matter? It's a matter of preference. Maybe it works better for you backwards. I don't know if anything's better or worse. It's hard to say. There's no real answer to that, to be honest. It's got adjustable antenna signal attenuation. So you could turn off the FM antenna, which is this guy. You can turn off the internal AM antenna, which is inside this guy, or you can turn them both off. Or you can also put it in a Faraday bag and you won't get any AM or FM regardless of what the setting is. So Galka's giving you a lot of options for these things depending on how you believe your best results will be obtained. It's got on the front here multimeter function, the ambient temperature deviation detection, the ATDD thing that is on the Mel Meter for hot and cold spot detection. And there's a couple of ways to reset that too. And of course the high intensity red LED flashlight that I've never used, but he likes to include these. He's got one on his Mel Meter too. So bro likes high intensity red LED flashlights. Someday it might come in handy. Who knows? So you switch it on here in the front, and you'll notice that there's two sets of the same buttons, one for each channel. Channel selections controlled using the function button on the front here. So you can choose channel 1, channel 2, press it a third time to scan both channels, press it again, switch it back to 1, and it kind of cycles through those settings. There's no correct or incorrect settings regardless of what your neighborhood paranormal expert tells you. It really depends on your location and the environment and the amount of energy that's available in your paranormal investigation. So we don't know. I can't tell you. Just use channel 1. Use both channels. Use a combination of whatever. I can't tell you because it really depends on your investigation, and each investigation tends to be a little bit different. So I recommend try scanning on one channel first. If you don't get anything good after a little while, maybe add the second channel, sweep both. In most cases, we use one channel and we get pretty good results, but we have used both. So again, depending on your area and how close you are to the local radio transmission towers, you might want to change your band to AM or FM or back and forth. Sometimes the local signal can be overwhelming and there's too many voices or noises to get a good reading. So again, you can use both channels and set one to AM, the other to FM, or set them both to AM or both to FM. Again, it depends on your location, the amount of energy on your investigation. There's really no incorrect setting. The bottom line is you're looking for results, and however you're going to get those results, man, that's what you set it to. Now, this one is disappointing. There's no numeric LCD or LED displays. You really won't know which frequencies you're scanning. I'd love to see that. I'm just curious, see, hey, what frequencies that coming from? I'd just like to know. Not super important, but it would be kind of cool to see that in the SB12. Then there's the sweep rate. And you'll see this on the front too. The sweep rate for both channels individually. That's the amount of time it spends on each frequency before moving on to the next frequency. In our experience, we seem to get the best results somewhere between 100 and 200 milliseconds for our sweep rate. 50 seems to be too fast. It's like, I can let you hear that actually. So let's put this on. We'll put this on. We'll go forward. This is 50 milliseconds. Let me turn it up so you can hear it. Too fast. This is on AM. Very, very fast. So I can change my sweep rate to 100. And again, somewhere between 100 and 200. 150 seems to be the magic number. Seems to be just enough time for words to kind of pop through that noise, or short phrases at times. And you can hear when it picks up something, it stops. It'll pause for a second. Sometimes we'll hear pauses before we hear something come through. And you can hit the mute thing on the side. So, spirit box. Are there any spirits in my midst here, in my area? Talk to me. Give me a yes or no. Sweeping on AM, channel 1 only, at 150 milliseconds. Or you can change it to 200, slows it down a little bit. And then hit the mute button when you want to ask questions or when you're talking to your fellow investigators. Really up to you. Depends on your location, your preference, your experience. Again, somewhere between 100 and 200 seems to work best for us. For us, it's, again, one channel, usually AM, depending on the location, but we've used FM. About 150 millisecond sweep rate. And I don't know why, but we just settled on a reverse, going backwards from 108 megahertz all the way back to 88. So it just seems to work for us. So AM, 150, and reverse. Now, something could work totally different for you, and I invite you to try them all because you never know. When you're on your investigations, it might not work for you, so change it up. See what works for you. Usually the same thing won't work the same in 2 investigations, but at least you know you have options, right? Last thing, again, sweep direction. You can crawl forward, backwards. You can set channel 1 to sweep forward, channel 2 to sweep backwards. So you can really change things up. You can say channel 1, I want you to sweep forwards on AM at 150 milliseconds. Channel 2, I want you to sweep FM backwards at 100 milliseconds. And there's 2 speakers on here. And you'll hear different things as they kind of shuttle through the different frequencies. Again, the ATDD sensor, which indicates increases or drops in the ambient temperature in 1 degree increments, which gives you this really loud, annoying beep when that's triggered. The sensor's on the front here. So you can actually hold the temperature reset button and disable the increasing tones. So you just have decreasing. So if the temperature drops, as they pull energy out of the spirits, pull energy out of the air, you'll hear it drop. Or you can turn the tones off altogether by multiple presses and holds of the temperature reset button. You can also baseline a new ambient temp or disable it altogether by hitting the temperature reset. Just a quick button, just zeroes it out, sets it to a normal ambient temperature, and you'll only detect temperature changes from there. Again, no LED or LCD readout of the actual temperature or the radio station, which I'd really dig, but I know it uses battery life, and he probably did that for a reason. But we do document temperatures, one of the few things we do document, and we have to use the EDI the eddy or the Mel Meter for that. But we don't really use this for temperature, but you might want to set it in a separate location if you're not using the spirit box function. Just as another indicator of where the paranormal activity may be if you have a big room. Just put this off to the corner. If you hear it go off, you can walk over there and bring your other equipment over there and begin your investigation in that side of the room. So also, one more thing here, individual volume controls for each of the channels, which is nice. 2 built-in speakers. They're a little tinny, not the best in the world. I mean, it's trying to squeeze a lot of stuff in this unit, so you have to sacrifice in places. So you can't really put big magnets, which means they're not super loud, but they're acceptable. Voice you really don't need big magnets for, but this thing really shines when you hook up an external speaker to it, or 2, or headphones, and you can really hear louder, wider, and more clear audible frequencies. And since there's actually 2 independent headphone jacks in here, you're going to need a funky adapter if you want to use both. Or you just hook one up. Like us, we just use channel 1, run it through an external speaker, and it sounds great. You can really hear a lot of stuff on here. And all of us can hear it at the same time. We're like, what was that? And of course, we're recording it too, so we can play it back as well. So check out some of the stuff we've captured with the SB11 unit. Pretty surprising. Is your name Arthur? Do you know our names? Did you die in this hotel? Digital speech synthesis. We got something called the Ovilus here. These devices electronically generate words or sounds. You'll find a lot of apps to do this too that are supposedly influenced by paranormal entities. Are they? Hard to say. Who knows? The theory is that entities can interfere with the electronics and affect certain sensors like temperature, humidity, electromagnetic fields, or even an accelerometer in different ways. And these devices like these, and some of the apps have a list of words that are pre-programmed that they can pronounce, triggered by combinations of readings taken by the sensors in these things. Now, here's the thing. Someone had to program the algorithm that's responsible for producing the words or sounds in this unit. Some theories indicate there's no real random, so spiritual interference forces certain words to appear. It's not as random as a spirit box because you can control programs. We'll talk about that in a second. This is our latest digital speech synthesizer. I had a problem with that word, known as the Ovilus 5B. Sometimes we call it an ovulator because we're just weird that way. Sometimes we dig this thing. It just works sometimes. Now, the ovulator converts environmental readings into words preloaded on an onboard dictionary, which is programmed into this thing. The manufacturer says the Ovilus does not use random generation or algorithms to create speech in any sequence or structured form. Now, all right, dude. Come on, kids. Got to be one or the other. Now, I'm a former software engineer. This box ain't filled with magic, okay? If it was, it wouldn't have any girth to it. This is a little computer. So somebody somewhere wrote some code to tell the ovulator when to ovulate, okay? And it's either an algorithm, which would be painfully difficult to generate for thousands of words unless you just randomly assign values to these things, or it's an algorithm combined with some sort of random assignment. I don't know. Based on our last investigation, it's kind of freaky. So I'm leaning towards the algorithm because we heard a lot of words that were repeated and relevant to our investigation, and that's what makes this thing so freaky. Okay, we were asking pointed, detailed questions, and we were getting responses through the Ovilus that were relevant and intelligent and pertaining to our discussion. And that's what freaked me out. So we don't know what's really causing it. Is it random? Is it an algorithm? I don't know, and they're not talking, whatever. Let's check it out. You can actually hear this for yourself when you turn it on.
Nana.
When you turn it on, it does a self-test, goes through a whole bunch of stuff. Nana mattress. Sometimes it's hard to hear. You can also hook this up to an external speaker too, which we've done. And a bunch of functions. This is a multimeter too. It picks up a whole bunch of things in here. In energy mode, this is dictionary mode. M. Ooh. Spooky. You know what? In anything, it's entertaining. And to me, as a paranormal investigator, I like to be entertained when I'm out in dark rooms with a bunch of weird people because it's fun. You know what I mean? I'm the biggest weirdo of it all, and this is one of my favorite devices because it just generates these words just out of nowhere. Like, it'll be really quiet for a while, and then you'll just get this devil, Satan, horror, and you're like, oh, and everybody just kind of screams, and we run around like little kids, and it's hilarious, really. And again, that's probably why you're doing paranormal investigations, because they're fun. Let's look at energy mode. Now, energy mode will display something similar to an oscilloscope. Showing the wave allows you to visualize how dynamic electric fields are actually happening in your area. So if you get a spike, you'll see a spike come up and down too, and it looks really cool in the dark because it's got a LCD's display, right? And it's not going to show you an average number like a magnetometer does. This thing's going to show you the actual ups and downs of the field, and you can actually do it. The accelerometer has some interference with that too, so that's pretty cool. So it may appear to respond to vibration, but it's actually responding to the static and electromagnetic fields. It is really cool to watch. You can shake it around and see it do kind of weird things, bang it on the top a little bit. So that is energy mode. You click the home button, you can see all the different modes here. In phonetic mode, to me this is really annoying. So noise is formed using phonemes built into the system from environmental readings. So you can click the pH here. So basically it just gives you all these pieces of words, vowels, some consonants. And honestly, I hate this thing because I never get anything useful out of it. Some people do it. It can actually put together words. In the right environment, it could assemble words, and it can really surprise you. To me, I've never seen it do that, and I don't use it. But again, your results may be different. Maybe that's what you're looking for. Maybe you're just struggling. You're getting nothing else. And this function will actually pull something out of the air that you can classify as paranormal. I don't know. I use dictionary mode. That's what I like. It's got something called a true and false mode on it too. So you can click that bad boy, and it's got a red, very faint green, and I think it's the old school LCD display, so it's really hard to see on an angle. You really got to look at it straight up. It looks great in the dark. So it's got a green light and a red light. Green on top, red on the bottom. So you can ask it binary questions, like true, false questions. You can say, Ovilus, can you really detect paranormal activity? And you just kind of wait for it to detect energy. And if it's true, it's going to kind of draw a line up towards the top. If it's false, it's going to go towards the bottom. Again, binary questions, not doing anything right now. And you can pause it. Oh, look at that. It's going true now. But I think I've interfered with it. It's going up towards the green light. So yeah, I can detect paranormal activity, but who knows? You know what I mean? Interesting function. We haven't really tested it yet. We're still into dowsing rods. We get really good results for whatever reason. You know what the reason is if you watched episode 2 of this. But yeah, we haven't used that function on the Ovilus yet. So unfortunately with this device, it's awesome. I love the dictionary mode. I love the words that come up, and it's proved to be really interesting in several paranormal investigations. I mean, I dig this device. I wholeheartedly endorse it. It's really weird, but weird enough to be useful and interesting. I like it. I like it a lot. But unfortunately, it's one and done. You can only use one function at any one time. This $400 ovulator won't do two functions at once. You can't look at energy and use the dictionary at the same time. But, you know, it's beggars can't be choosers, right? Love to see that split screen or some sort of external capability where you could do two things at once, but maybe that'll happen in the future. We actually get some good results when we use the Ovilus during dowsing sessions. And actually, it helped guided some of our more poignant questions in the dowsing sessions, just kind of like they did here. Check it out for yourself.
And I told her that, yeah, I have a spirit in my house. And can you tell me anything about him? And I didn't give any names or anything. And she said, well, you're going to think I'm crazy, but it's St. Christopher.
You were created before time? I'm going to tell you, this is like when I first came in here. I've been saying as an angel, those numbers originally. Is it Christopher? Are you here, Christopher? Angle.
Angle rods.
Supposed to be Angle or Angel.
Yeah, could be. Is your name Christopher? Disregard.
Disregard Angle.
Go back to July. So what's going to happen in July? My eyes are watering up, so.
Rapture.
Rapture, yeah.
Hugh. Fire. Robert.
All right, so cameras. I love me some cameras. Cameras. Oh, cameras are awesome. I love cameras. There's a number of cameras that are used to record paranormal investigations. Honestly, the jury is still out on orbs. Some orbs may be residual paranormal energy. Some are just light, just reflecting off dust. It's really sometimes all orbs are. So jury's out. We don't really know. Maybe regular, real world, this dimension energy, or it could be something else being generated. But whatever. And full-blown apparitions, as we said before, so incredibly rare because they require so much energy that the camera's really not as awesome as you think it is. Of course, if you want to show these shows as like a program like the Under Presence, like ours do, and yeah, you want to show this because it's interesting watching these guys run around in the dark doing all this stuff and recording stuff, and you never know when you might get something. So yeah, definitely capture video. But the most important thing, actually, we have some pretty good video. I don't have a whole lot of video where we actually captured paranormal activity, but check out this shadow thing. I still, to this day, cannot explain what this is. And these, what I call fireworks. I've never seen anything like it. They defy gravity. They go up in the air. There's nothing else in the room moving or doing anything, generating these things. Check these out. So there's a whole bunch of different cameras used in these investigations, and I'll give you what we use here. We'll tell you why, too. Camera image sensors, known as CCDs, are charged coupled devices, little chips inside the cameras. They're capable of capturing wavelengths, without getting too technical, of about 350 nanometers to 1,000 nanometers. And since visible light is within that realm, about 380 to 740 for most people, video cameras can technically capture things we can't see. We call them invisible stuff. Most consumer camera manufacturers put a filter over the CCD to prevent this unwanted light from being captured because it can create strange artifacts. Hey, I didn't want that in my picture. There's this little blob of light here. So they filter it out so you don't see it in your pictures of Grandma Jenny and Uncle Bob. So in some cameras, you can actually go in and remove these filters to turn the device into something called a full spectrum camera. Now, the full spectrum filter allows the camera sensor to see the entire range of wavelengths to which it's naturally sensitive. It's visible light, stuff we can see in that range, plus UV, ultraviolet light, plus infrared light at both ends of the spectrum. There's also an IR only setting where the infrared sensor removes all the visible light and the ultraviolet light, but allows the camera to see the infrared light, which is kind of what we consider night vision, that black and white image that you see called night vision. That's typically IR. Either way, recorded or not, humans can't see true ultraviolet or infrared. When those images are recorded, they're displayed in black and white, sometimes purple, so you can actually see what's going on. You can see what the camera caught. Resolution. Is it important? It kind of is. I mean, the more your resolution, the more you're going to see. 720 or better, it's considered HD. There's 720, 1080, or 4K. There's 2K too, but capture in 4K if you have the storage space. But again, sound is probably the most critical thing because EVPs are the bulk of what we receive as paranormal evidence. Apparently, it's a lot easier to create sounds and interfere with electromagnetic waves than it is to become completely visible. So you definitely want to capture those EVPs through your cameras, microphones. So here's what we use. I've got a Samsung S20 smartphone. Not super great in low light, but getting better, but it's better than nothing. If you got it, use it. Any smartphone, even if it's not a Samsung S20, even an older iPhone, use it. Capture what you can. And remember, your microphone on that video camera is recording audio. Most modern smartphones have pretty awesome HD cameras. And the later models, later iPhones and Samsung models have really good low light recording. Again, they have pretty good omnidirectional microphones built into the phone. So another tip, always use the rear camera rather than the selfie camera because you get better resolution and they have better lenses and glass on the back camera. So always shoot that way. And I don't know how many times I need to tell these morons, but never record portrait mode. Always record landscape. This is portrait. This is landscape. I don't know why anybody catches anything. Nobody watches TV. Have you ever watched TV like this? Turn your phone. It doesn't take that much. And the accelerometer is going to know. It's going to say, oh, okay, we're going to take it landscape like a normal human being, okay? So rectangular, sideways, landscape. It's always more interesting when you record video landscape than portrait because you miss all the stuff's going on the side, okay? Just like our show, landscape. Portrait video should be friggin' illegal. Sideways, always more interesting. So come on. Landscape mode, okay? Write that down. I'll take a moment here. All right, let's look at infrared or full spectrum video cameras. Full spectrum, are they really necessary or is infrared good enough? To be honest, infrared, really all you need. Night vision is like infrared. And it looks black and white when you show it because you can't see infrared. And it's called almost security cameras, and it looks great. It's actually good enough. You can see what you're doing when you guys are running around in a dark room. Infrared is perfect for that. Do you need full spectrum? Do you need ultraviolet? Probably not. Are you going to detect anything? Maybe, but it's unlikely. Because then most of the evidence that we record is not visual evidence. And most of the stuff we've recorded so far has been infrared. So infrared's probably good enough. If you can afford full spectrum, go full spectrum. Let me know if you caught anything in full spectrum that we couldn't see in infrared. Honestly, I'd love to see it because maybe I'm wrong. Nobody knows. There's no rules in paranormal investigations. We're just trying to figure all this out together. So night vision cameras you can get for under $100 to catch them on sale. While full spectrum cameras, $300, $400, $500, depending on where you get them. So a lot more money for the full spectrum. Do you need them? Jury's out, man. I don't know, to be honest with you. We've even wired up some old school infrared security cameras for an investigation. 4 cameras hooked it up through this hard drive, worked wonderfully. Caught us all running around. Nothing really paranormal or out of the sorts, but some orbs here and there. But yeah, it did the trick. It was perfect. So another thing too, let me be straight up with you. Spirits and ghosts don't really care if it's dark, if it's night, if it's midnight. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them. Some of our most active investigations have actually happened in the middle of the afternoon in broad daylight, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it looks a lot cooler if you're filming for your friends or for television like we do at night, but darkness is not absolutely necessary for any paranormal investigator. You probably we actually caught an orb in the middle of the day at a hotel. And another thing I'm going to tell you is a professional video guy is don't zoom. Because most of these cameras, the lower end ones, don't have good glass, they call it. So they use a digital zoom, which just pixelates the heck out of your picture, and it looks terrible. So if you want to zoom, you can zoom in post-production if you're editing. But I don't recommend using the zoom because it's going to create this blurry, useless image if you use a digital zoom. Again, if you've got a good camera with really good lenses, good glass, zoom all you want, but zooming in the dark is going to give you blurry and pixelated images as well because it's going to be hard to focus. So most of the cameras you're going to buy for paranormal investigations, either the UV or IR, aren't really 4K. Some say they're 4K, but they compress like in either 1080 or 2K signal to 4K. And a lot of cases, in some of the cameras we have, it's really hard to deal with outside the camera. So it's cool. Just settle for HD is really all you need. Hunting cameras. I want to mention hunting cameras. We kind of stumbled upon these on a hunting adventure. One of my relatives, I'm like, well, check these things out. What do they do? And he showed me some stuff of deer running around at night. I'm like, I wonder if they'd work in paranormal investigations. And son of a gun, they do. They're inexpensive. Most of them are full HD. Some are 4K. Some have built-in night vision with a bunch of LED infrared lights right on the camera itself. It's everything. It's like a flash. And they turn on, and they're pretty good with batteries, too. It's surprisingly good with batteries. The only downside, some have audio, too. They actually have a pretty decent microphone on them. I don't know why you'd need audio in a night vision hunting camera. Maybe you hear the deer talk. Hey, Bob, stay away from this guy. He's angry. The only downside is most of them are activated by a motion sensor. And paranormal stuff probably doesn't have the physical girth to set off the motion sensors. If you're using them in a paranormal investigation, set it to the longest capture method, longest capture length. I think on mine, they're 10 minutes. And I have to remember to go in that room and trigger it every 10 minutes or so. But to set up a whole bunch of additional cameras on a paranormal investigation is invaluable, man. It's pretty cool. Just move every 10 minutes or so to make sure they stay on and create a new file. So, all right. And finally, the Sls Camera. You've probably seen and heard about these things, and we finally picked one of these up because they're interesting. The Connect Structured Light Sensor, or SLS camera, builds up this big three-dimensional model of a room or a view using invisible infrared laser grid of dots that it projects. I actually caught it on some of our investigations, and we can see it on our infrared cameras. Technology comes back from 2010. Microsoft's Xbox made a big deal. You probably remember that about 10 years ago. This technology and manufacturing was officially discontinued in 2017. And it's gone away. They don't make these things anymore. And the SLS it'll broadcast all those dots, and it'll attempt to make like a stick figure out of anything it sees using a head and body, arms, and legs. It tries to make people out of everything it sees shooting these infrared dots out. And it's intelligent. It's like, hey, is there a person there? Let me try to make a person there because I want to follow the person. Because when it was developed for the gaming industry, that was its twist. It was able to follow your body, and you could play tennis or do boxing or whatever. And I'm not sure why it didn't take off. It was an awesome technology, and it was really, really interesting. But didn't really work. Discontinued in 2017. Don't make them anymore. So paranormal investigators believe that this equipment can detect objects that are invisible to the naked eye. And for the camera to detect an object, it needs a physical form that the infrared dots will hit and reflect back to the camera. So if a ghost manifests into a solid apparition and appears in these IR dots that you can't see with your naked eyes, your SLS camera will see it and display it as a stick figure. So that's the theory here. So these are custom built units using Connect infrared sensors with a Windows tablet and some software. They're modified, they're in there, they're doing some soldering because it won't work natively. They got to go on and make some changes so it connects with a modern day computer. They're kind of awkward and heavy, and some of these things are pretty pricey. I think ours is about $800, but we got an upgraded tablet and upgraded case, so we wanted the best we could possibly get, so we didn't have to fool around with it. We wanted it to be fast to capture everything if it captured anything, and a little bit more storage too, and a little better battery life. So there are instructions on the web. If you're handy with electronics, you can actually make your own. If you can get your hand on one of these Connect sensors, they're all used at these points because they haven't made them in a couple of years, so you can find them easily on eBay. I guess they sold them by the thousand. People junk their old Xboxes and their Connect. They pick them up by the hundreds or thousands and make them into these things. So it's good that they're getting secondary use and not ending up in the landfill. So basically, you make sure your batteries are all charged up, flick it on, open the software, and scan your area just looking for stickmen. The critics argue that these SLS devices like to draw a stick man over anything remotely human-shaped and track its movement. And it's true. Our vacuum cleaner and our tripods often become stick men. But what's interesting is that sometimes you'll see something weird and unexplainable in the screen here. These stick figures can twitch and dance around randomly and even respond to intelligent conversations. And that's what freaked me out, because I saw it with my own eyes and I recorded it. Their scale can be different too. They can be small, big. They can move across your screen too. Now, Victor Pruna had no tripod or anything on his shoulder when this happened. There was a tree behind him, so I'll give you, it could be the tree, but it was like Victor Pruna's grandma came to visit him and actually listened to our requests. Check it out for yourself.
See anything? You see anything?
Uh-oh.
Seeing. We're going at 66.6. We're getting paranormal activity out here now.
Uh-oh.
Look, this is up
Look at
to
that EMS
140.
going nuts by itself.
140, 100.
Yourself, come here, get this real quick. It's dancing on your shoulder. Perhaps it's your guardian angel. What is that?
It's Grandma.
Grandma was on your shoulder. This is the medium
It's the
shoulder.
same shoulder.
Grandma, if that's you, jump down. Go down into the couch.
120,
Oh
110.
my God, look, she's trying to go down. Go ahead, you can go down, Grandma. It's safe down there. If that's you, Grandma, go ahead down onto the cushion. Let us see you stand there. Thank you, Grandma. Grandma, if you are here to protect Jake, put your hands in the air. Put your hands straight up in the air if you're here to protect Jake. Crap. Oh my God! Oh my God!
Thank you, Elita. I know you always got my back.
You can hug him if you want. Give him a hug. You can reach your arms around Jake right now. He's waiting for you.
I feel you.
He feels you. Oh.
She's gone.
So that's the basics of paranormal investigative equipment. This is most of what we use. And again, your results may be different. You might have something else. If you got something else that's newer and more exciting, put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. And we'd love to test it out too. We love testing new stuff all the time. Because again, there's no rules in this realm. We're dealing with energies that we don't understand, from planes or dimensions that we don't even really know exist. The point is that we do detect something that we can't explain, and if it's not normal, then it's paranormal, and we want to share that with you, and we'd love if you shared yours with us. Chuck Fresh from the Underpresence. Check out our show on Amazon Prime and YouTube, and we'll have one more class coming up after this, so stick around and make sure you subscribe and catch on to that as well. Thanks, y'all. Be safe.
Thank you.